They say that they have a peace behind. Who have said that never sat through a will reading with people who agree like a custom and ambition like perfume. The lawyers of offices mallet like policed wood and patience. The kind of room where every sound feels like an interruption. Even the clock had the descent it quietly. He sat at the end of that long moving table. The last kerchief in my hand already damp before I said a word. Around my neck his eyes wedding band gold. Simple, dented from years of carpentry and prayer. Use it to say, when you go, keep this close. It knows your pulse batted an any doctor. He didn't know me and so soon. Marina arrived 10 minutes late. El sharp out to stop the fluo. Perfume too sweet for sorrow. She kissed there next to my cake and called me mama, a word that always meant different things depending on who was listening. Mama, you look tired, she said, smoothing her skirt. Traffic was a mess. Her voice was sugar, but her eyes were inventorying the room. She was already counting things that didn't belong to her yet. The lawyer cleared his throat, old man. With hands that trembled like honesty trying to survive a profession. Mrs. Ethel Carter, M.S. Marina Carter. I'm sorry for your loss. He said. It a pedatic envelope that looked heavier than its old. This is Mr. Isaiah Carter's final will and testament. Updated 3 months before his passing. The air shifted. Even the curtains seemed to hold their breath. He called almost a Isaiah Ming, that low baritone used to fill awkward silences with. He always added tension. The lawyer unfolded the pages and began to read. Isaiah left the house a red brick. Posterior with the cracking pork and the marigolds that refused to die, to me. Half of the savings to the Kirk Scholarship Fund. The hotel, a trust for Marina's daughter when she turned 21. The pickup truck to the account Harris for fishing it more times than I was asked to. Typical Isaiah, even in that. Marina smiled. The kind of a smile that looks rare said would not ready. She crossed her legs and waited for her name to come again. It didn't. Is that she asked. The question came out soft, but it landed hard. Nothing about the updated Daddy mentioned. After the hospital. The lawyer frowned. Hospital. She turned toward me. Daddy said he wanted to make sure I'd handle the finances. So you wouldn't have to stress. He told me he was revising things. He felt my pulse behind the ring around my neck. Your father talked about a lot of revisions. He said quietly, but he didn't whisper them in secret. Her jaw stiffened. The lawyer flipped through pages again. Slower this time. I have no record of an amendment. There was an email, Marina said quickly. I drafted something. I saw it. I just don't have the final version yet. Unless it was signed and witnessed. The lawyer said gently. It cannot override the existing will. For the first time, I saw something break in her posture, not grief. Not guilt, something ugly, fear. Fear that the story she had already told someone else wasn't going to hold up. We left in silence. Different cars, different roads, same blood. The drive home felt longer than usual. The sky was grey, polite, like it didn't want to rain on a widow. I passed the corner through it stand where Isaiah used to buy peaches. The school where Marina won her first spelling bee. The court where I sang Amazing Grace of Keywood with conviction. Every corner carried an echo of something we used to be. When I reached the house, the pork lid clicked on automatically. Isaiah had wired it to do that. I called it the house remembering you. Sometimes, I think the lid misses him too. I put the wheel beside his Bible and made myself tea and drink. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. But the voice, soft, polite, belonged to the lawyer's assistant. Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry to disturb you. We just received an email from Mr. Carter's old account, dated 2 months before his passing. It suggests intent to move the house into a living trust under M.S. Marina's management. Pending evaluation of your, she hesitated. Capacity, he repeated. That's a pretty word with ugly shoes. It's not binding, she rushed to say. Notarization was never completed, but ms, Marina forwarded it as supporting documentation. Says requested a meeting tomorrow morning. I closed my eyes, then I better, with my capacity fully dressed. After I hung up, the house went still. Even the refrigerator stopped humming for a moment, like it wanted to listen. I sat down in his sky, his thinking guy. The one by the window where balanced bills and Bible verses. I let my tears run until they dried somewhere behind my ribs. Then I opened his file cabinet. I sat labeled one folder for Ethel on bad days. Inside were receipts, letters, photocopies, and one note written in his block handwriting. It brief makes you forget. This will help you remember. Never sign your name under someone else's sentence. Capacity is a word people use when they want custody of your life. We made all decisions in sunlight. At the bottom lay a copy of a power of attorney revocation form wet filed years ago. When a neighbor tried to make me signature one. As I said, Papa can love you or leave you, depending on who's holding the pen. You wasn't wrong. The next morning, Marina arrived before breakfast. No appointment, knock knock. She sat down hit the way before I said it. Mama, she said, we need to talk. Her tone was that dangerous blend of pity and persuasion that voices uses when she's already rehearsed the ending. Talk then, he said. She took a deep breath, like she was gathering excuses instead of her. Daddy wanted me to manage things. He said after your fainting spells. It won't be safe. There is a doctor's note, and the lawyer said. I don't care what the lawyer said. He interrupted softly, and Dr. Shelton listens to his what more than to me. If you wrote something about my mind, I sold his ink up. Her lips trembled, then flattened. Mama, this isn't personal, it's practical. Personal, he said, is how you got born. Practical is how you get buried. She said, why are you making this hard? I'm just trying to help. Help is was in this, baby, this is ejecting. Her eyes flared, you're paranoid. And you're prepared, he said, that's the difference between fear and planning. She stepped closer, whisperingly, you never trusted me. I looked her square in the eye. You stopped being trustworthy the day you took love came with legal documents. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Only the marigolds outside tapped against the window, soft as prayer beads. Then she said it. Fine, I'll bring the paperwork, you'll see. I've got paperwork too, he said, mine is sunlight on it. She turned to leave, else account like punctuation. When the door closed, the quiet that followed wasn't peace, it was preparation. I called 3 people. Case from court, sick knows a variant at the county clerk's office. Louis, my neighbor is a memory sharper than a judge. And the deacon, because the deacon was Isaiah 2 favors and 1 secret. By evening, he had a plan. The next day, he would sit at that table again, not as a grieving widow, but as a woman who remembered her own handwriting. That night, sleep came slow. When it did, it brought memories instead of rest. He dreamed of Marina Tate, wearing her father's hat, dragging his toolbox down the hall, saying she wanted to fish things just like Daddy. Isaiah laughed and said, baby, fishing things isn't about the hammer, it's about patience. She looked up and said, then Mama's the best fisher. She never stops waiting. I woke with tears on my face. Patience, it used to be my favorite virtue. Now it feels like an old bruise that still throbs when the weather changes. The next morning, the phone rang again. The lawyer's assistant sounded uneasy. Mrs. Carter, your daughter has submitted documents, a letter from Dr. Shelton about your cognitive condition. Unsigned trust drafts, and an emergency request for temporary management. Temporary, he asked, that's almost permanent in begin. She hesitated, you may want to attend today's review meeting. I better, he said, and tell them to bring an oak caves. I wore a navy. Isaiah used to say navy made me look like he had authority over storms. He didn't wear pearls, took yet. Just the ring on the cane. That was a no witness. At the law office, Marina was already seated, laptop open like a weapon. She smiled faintly, like a take about to grab my sanity. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, Ms. Carter, thank you for coming again. We've reviewed the submitted materials. He read the so-called capacity statement aloud in a full of policed doubt. Mil cognitive concerns recommend oversitting financial matters. I waited until I finished. Then laid my documents on the table. The revocation form, is a note, and my doctor's actual evaluation. Read them in that order. He said, it sounds like a sermon. Edit. By the time I read the second paragraph, his expression softened. This is kid, conclusive. Marina's voice cracked. Mama, why are you doing this? Because you already did, he said, you just did it wrong. Lawyer's face fell. The assistant avoided eye contact. Even the air conditioner paused. When it was over, the lawyer said, Mrs. Carter, your documentation stands, Ms. Marina, unless you obtain a court order. Your petition cannot proceed. I gathered my papers, slow, deliberate. Marina looked at me, not angry this time. Just to you. Mama, she whispered, you'd really fit your own blood. I met her gaze. Baby, I'd fit even if it borrowed my DNA. Then he left, ring warm against my chest. The weight of sunlight finally on my side. Outside, it started to rain, soft, steady, cleansing. The kind of rain is I used to call what was in the port before a good news. I stood there a while, letting it baptize the day. When he finally got home, the pork light blinked once, twice, then stayed on. He sat down in his sky and whispered, we're still standing, baby. And tomorrow, I'm bringing the light. People think the bleeding started with the will. They're wrong. Blood never begins at the wound, it begins where the body was already thin. Marina was born loud, radiant, and impossible to ignore. The nurses laughed because she came out uttering like she'd been interrupted. Isaiah cried before I did. Held her up to the hospital light and whispered, look at her, Ethel, but finally gave us under with ella lasses. She was all energy, all petite, all sense stage. Even as a baby she didn't sleep, she performed exhaustion. At 2, she wanted the whole night burro to know her favorite song. At 5, she wanted applause for eating broccoli. At 8, she wanted truppies bigger than her. And at 15, she wanted freedom before she'd learned what it costs. Used to say she was lightning in sneakers. Isaiah used to say, lightning's fine, long as you remember it can burn the house down. That warning became a prophecy. The day the phone rang from the school, he was cooking Sundays left to Vatican, the kind of quiet core that makes you believe a piece still belongs to you. The voice on the other end sounded official. Brittle, rare said. Mrs. Carter, there's been an incident involving your daughter. They told me to come a kick. I didn't even change shoes. I drove through a thunderstorm so me and the whippers sounded like applause for bad news. When I arrived, they led me down a way that smelled of black and regret. A smile of fish awaited with blinds half closed, as if the truth only deserved partial daylight. Marina sat in the corner wrapped in one of those silver emergency blankets, trembling. As we debut distant. She looked both 15 and 40 at the same time. My baby, folded in a metallic hook that couldn't keep out summer. Mrs. Carter, the counselor said softly, there was a party, alcohol, upper-class students, there was a video. That word, video, turned my stomach cold and rainwater. I didn't ask what was on it. Mothers know before they are told. I just said, where is the boy? The counselor looked away, the way people do when the answer already smells like inequality. They said the school would handle it internally if we stay quiet. That phrase, handle it internally, is just code for hiding something that might make people uncomfortable. And so the first silence began. It woke Marina home. Isaiah met us at the door. His face a prayer of wish rubbing answered. He didn't speak, he just wrapped his jacket around her. She didn't cry until he did. Later, when the house was dim and smiled with embarrassment, he asked her, "Baby, did you say yes the whole time?" She whispered, "He said yes until he forgot what no meant." That was the night he learned love can't protect a child from wanting to be seen. Attention is a counterfeit blessing, and it glitters the same as grace until you hold it under real light. We kept her home for a week. We scrubbed rumors with donations. We sent polite letters and quiet threats. We asked the internet to forget, but the internet never does. We taught her to walk with her chin up, because some is a scavenger, it only adds what you feed it. Still, something changed by in her eyes. Ambition moved in where innocence used to life. By 16, she spoke like a woman applying for management. By 17, she dressed like opportunity was a person she planned to marry. And by 18, she learned that term called there as a story if wielded right. Isaiah said, "She's smart, Ethel, just needs direction." He said, "She's driven, just doesn't know which route is murky." He loved, then we will share some guardrails. But the trouble with lightning is it jumps fences. College a cama like a passport she didn't need permission to stamp. Communications major of course. Se could convince a Claude to rain on schedule. The first semester, se called a very Sunday. By the second, a very hot Sunday. By the third, he only knew she was alive through Instagram. She interned at a PR firm and learned that sincerity is optional when your email has the right signature. She learned how to say a story, even if you had to edit the villain out of frame. And she came home for holidays wearing confidence like armor, perfume like punctuation. One Christmas, she told me, "Mama, you play smile, Daddy and I talk about this all the time. You could have been a business woman." "I was," he said, "the business was survival." She rolled her eyes. "That's not the same thing." "No," he said, "it's hard." Isaiah laughed, tried to make a peça, passed her demasiado potatoes. He always played translator between all languages, ambition, mind, endurance. Then came the sickness. Isaiah started forgetting small things, his case, his hat, the second verse of his favorite. He said it was age. He said it was exhaustion. The doctors said it was monitoring territory. He promised me it was nothing. He promised Marina too. But one morning they fell in the garage. The urine rolled away like it couldn't bear witness. At the hospital, Marina arrived with flowers and a laptop. She kissed his forehead, smiled at me, and said, "Let me help with the paperwork." Isaiah handed over his password like fate itself. She typed faster than grief could catch up. From that day, he saw the shift. My daughter wasn't trying to help her father, she was learning how systems listen better to signatures than to stories. Isaiah came home awake but stubborn. He'd sit in his car and make jokes about being broke about love. I'd tell him those. Edwin can't say, "That's my Ethel, still the CFO of miracles." We had one more year to get before the morning the pork light clicked on without reason and didn't turn off. It knew. Widows always know before the phone rings. The funeral was a theater of madness. Everyone came dressed in black that cost more than sincerity. Marina arranged the program, cosa de, Evan Murota de eulogi. When she stood at the pulpit, she looked like both doubt and CEO of grief. She said all the right things. And when she cried, the cameras caught it perfectly. Isaiah would have been proud and a little scared. Afterwards, the pastor told me, "Sister Ethel, you're blessed to have such a strong daughter." I nodded. But strength without tenderness is just controlling else. The months after his death were a fog of condolences and legal envelopes. Marina visited often, always with coffee, always with questions about accounts, bills, the debt. "Let me help, Mama," said she. But the way she said help sounded like candle. One night she brought a bindle ballet transition plan. I told se me and my grief. Se me and my assets. Daddy told me to set this up before I pass it. She said, we can transfer the house into a trust. It will simplify everything. Simplify for who? I asked. For us. Smiled without my teeth. There is no on paperwork. She frowned. Mama, this isn't betrayal. It's strategy. Baby, I said, strategy without prayer is just ambition rehearsing the set. She sighed, you're being dramatic. Then drama must run in the family. I said. She didn't laugh. That's a moment. The fainting spells began. Once in the grocery store. Once at car rehearsal. Once on the porch while trimming marigolds. Dr. Salton said it was stress. Prescribed some matins mal. Wait, forgettable. Told me to avoid overexertion. The neuroteanote I never saw, the nota marina la teused to prova midnight overseat. That was the first cut I didn't see bleed. When I found out, I confronted him. He looked down at his shoes. Mrs. Carter, he said, your daughter loves you very much. She just wants to make sure you're safe. I smiled, doctor, safety isn't a prescription. It's an agreement, and I don't remember signing it. He looked embarrassed. Promised to update his records. He never did. But he kept the appointment slip proof that Lies liked to travel with luggage. The second cut came a disguised scare. Marina started showing up unannounced, rearranging things, my mail, my calendar, my memories. She said she was organizing. I called it excavation. One afternoon, she found this sludge, the one I kept under the Bible. She flipped through it and said, these entries are messy, il digit is a theme. I said, Pape survived slavery, baby, it can survive you. She laughed, but her hands trembled. Control never feels secure until it conquers. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, talking a very way wild, a very doorknob set police that likes you owned it. And I prayed not for peace, but for evidence. God, let me say the truth before I notarize it. Away eclaté, de l'auie called about the mail, the one that shifted management pending capacity evaluation. And just like that, the old scars split open again. Because a betrayal never introduces itself, it just draws us familiar faces. But the real bleeding, the one that won't clot, started long before all this. It started in that silver blanket at 15. In a room where silence was current and we paid in full. That was the day I taught her how to survive humiliation. And she learned too well. She learned to never be the one caught off guard again. She built an empire out of prevention. A very risk was a betrayal waiting to happen. A very promise, a potential debt. A very parent, a potential obstacle. She loved me, yes, but through the filter of control. I can't even blame her completely. The world taught her that protection means possession. And I modeled me. Modeled endurance that looked to move like obedience. Sometimes I think about the nights I snuck out before that party. The way I sat in the living room, pretending to read, waiting to the front door. The way I found Charlotte on the curb, mascara running like melted ink, some holding shirted and fear. I didn't yell. I just said, baby, choices come with weight, learn to pack accordingly. She nodded then, but she never really heard it. She spent the next 20 years trying to control the forecast. The morning after the will reading, I found an old photo tucked in Isaiah's Bible, Marina at 5. Wearing my pearls, holding a fake microphone made from airbrush. It scribbled on the back. Oh girl, loaded and heaven, softed and forgiveness. I traced the words until they blurred. Loaded and heaven, that part is still true. Softed and forgiveness, that part not yet. By the time the sun came up, it knew what it had to do. I made coffee, black and honest. Pulled out a very receipt Isaiah kept. A very certificate, a very note, a very promise written in ink instead of whispers. I wasn't preparing for what, I was preparing for recognition. Because assumatimus justice is about winning. It's about refusing to disappoint quietly. That afternoon, I called Geneva, Ethel, and Louis, my circle. They came met with folders and scripture. Geneva said, men use the word capacity when they want to sound like caretakers but act like landlords. Ethel said, bring witnesses who know your rhythm. They can't fake a familiarity. Louis said, bring the bills you paid. Paperwork that smells like groceries and utility ink. Judges love a woman with receipts. We spent the evening rehearsing answers, not apologies. They left me with hooks. And stayed up late labeling folders health, property, memory, fate. Color-coded like defense strategies written in sunlight. When I finally crawled into bed, I looked at his eyes Silla, still indented, still loyal. I whispered, you taught me to love through daylight. Baby, now we've got to survive through documents. Outside, the pork light blinked once. Then steadied, airbag made of electricity and promise. The bleeding had slowed, but it hadn't stopped. Because the wounds that deep don't close with bandages, they close with boundaries. It knew the next battle wasn't about houses or wheels. It was about the invisible inheritance, the right to define my own sanity. And in this family, that right had always been contested property. They said the hearing would take 10 minutes. 10 minutes to decide if a woman could still sing her own name. But when love is on trial, time turns elastic. It's stretches until even truth starts sweating. The courthouse smelled like dust and fear hiding under Cologne. Rows of folding chairs filled with curiosity disguised as concern. I wore a again, his eyes full of storms. Marina wore wheat, of course said it. Wheat makes people believe you're pure, even when the ink on your petition still smells fresh. Charlotte was young, crisp, confident. He looked at me like he was my work didn't want to grade. I didn't bring a lawyer. I broke my circle, Geneva, Louis, and Ethel, woman who have been my witnesses since God first taught me patience. The judge entered with a sit that sounded older than his face. Guardianship petition, Carter versus Carter, he said. Like it was a mad problem instead of a family bleeding in public. He nodded to Marina first. Ms. Carter, you filed for temporary guardianship of your mother. Please explain your concern. Marina stood. Her voice smooth, almost tender. Your Honor, this isn't about taking control. It's about protecting my mother. She's been having fainting spells, confusion, lapses. Her doctor recommended oversight. I'm just trying to keep her safe. She sat, folded her hands, looked at me like she expected applause. The judge turned my way. Mrs. Carter, do you have representation? I stood slowly, just representation of self, Your Honor. And a few women who seen me pay my own bills and bury my own husband. A cup clarinet played through the back row. The judge smoked quiet, proceed. I nodded, stepped forward, the floor cracking under a very I survived. Your Honor, I've been fainting sometimes, yes, mostly from dehydration and disbelief. But I haven't forgotten how to sing my own cakes. What made out the cause confusion? I call fatigue from carrying the summer roof that raised her. Marina stiffened. Charlotte whispered something that sounded like damage control. The judge asked, Mrs. Carter, are you opposing this petition because you don't believe you need assistance? I smiled softly. No, sir, I'm opposing it because my daughter keeps confusing care with custody. A few people murmured. The judge tapped his pen. Let's focus on facts. I brought facts, he said, stamped, notarized, and sanctified. I opened my folder, the one labeled name. Inside, my neurologist's letter. His eyes handwritten note, the notarized revocation. A piece of paper in its own key. I laid them down like scripture. Your Honor, these documents prove that my so-called incapacity was a rumored by convenience. If love needs court approval, it stopped being love long before today. Marina's lawyer rose, Objection, emocional commentari. De jutge siget, overruled, sumatimes emotion clarifies fact. Marines tu again, ans trembling despit a xer postura. Mama, se said, voice breaking through the microphone. This isn't about control, it's about peace of mind. Yours or mine, I asked. Se hesitated, us. Baby, there is no plural in independence. Share is flazzed, you think I'm the enemy. No, he said softly, I think you're still the girl wrapped in a silver blanket policy that never turned saving again. And now you've a mistake and domination for safety. Se blinked fast, tears collecting but refusing to fall. Mama, I was just trying to make sure you're okay. I stepped closer. I was okay before your paperwork told the world you wasn't. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, please address the bench. Your Honor, he said, turning back, my daughter's petition says I've lost capacity. What I lost was her trust. And I refused to let a courtroom rename that. The air went still. That kind of silence that isn't empty, just holding its breath. Then came the testimonies. The nurse from my clinic spoke first. Mrs. Carter still reads a very prescription out loud to correct my pronunciation. She said. Loud again, light but sincere. She's alert, organized, independent. And she brings cookies for the waiting room. Next was Geneva. Judge, I've known Ethel 30 years. If she forgets anything, it's out to rest. That woman remembers a very birthday, a very borrowed latte, a very verse. If she needs a guardian, then I'm the stubborn. The room cookled, even the judge smiled, eyes soft. Then gazed up the stand, young and fierce. Set out me auto balance my catwalk and balance my pace. If she's unfit, then wisdom's in trouble. Finally, Louis, quiet, deliberate. This isn't about money, Your Honor. It's about permission. The doctor wants to reread the mother's story because she can't stand the captive where she messed up. Marina's lawyer objected. The judge waved him off. Let her finish. Louis leaned forward. Mrs. Carter doesn't need guardianship. She needs rest from being gaslit by people who love Sherwood. The room met with applause before the bailiff's cold system. Then it was Marina's turn again. She stood slow this time, voice trembling in a way that told the truth before Sherwood's tried to. You will think I'm cruel, she said, but you don't see her at night. You don't see her talking to that sky. You don't see how she keeps his cup washed, how she still sets 2 plates for dinner. You don't see how she forgets the world exists outside those marigolds. I'm scared say father, and you won't notice until she's gone. The judge nodded gently. Thank you, Ms. Carter. He turned to me, Mrs. Carter. I looked at my daughter, really looked. Her mascara had surrendered to her tears. Her voice, so strong in control, now cracked in confession. I wanted to upshare. But Merky can't interrupt testimony. Your Honor, he said, my daughter is right about one thing. I do talk to Isaiah Sky. I do keep his cup washed. But that's not confusion. That's devotion. The living remember the dead, that's how we stay alive. And if I father, it's because the lead can jet, not because my mind did. The judge leaned back, silent. He wrote a something on his pad, but his hand was shaking slightly. Marina swallowed, her voice smiled again. I just didn't want to lose you. I know that, you can't lose what doesn't belong to you, baby. You can only let it live freely. The judge exhaled, the sound of justice attacking off its shoes. He looked between us, then said quietly. This isn't a case of incapacity. It's a case of boundary. Petition denied. Mrs. Carter retains full control of her state and person. The gavel hit once, lit, merciful. The sound didn't feel like victory. It felt like oxygen. When the room emptied, I stayed seated. My knees were steady, but my spirit was shaking. Marina stood by the door, staring at the floor. Mama, she whispered, you embarrassed me. I looked up. No, baby, I preserved you. Embarrassment fades, ownership doesn't. She flinked, then looked that sharp, fragile kind of love people use to stop crying. You always have to win. I don't win, I said, I just refuse to surrender my definition. Shirley stepped forward. Ms. Carter, we can appeal. She cut him off. No, let it be. Then she turned back to me. I just wanted to help. I nodded, and I just wanted to stay visible. Both of us got what we came for. She didn't answer. Just picked up her purse and left the room with the dignity of someone learning how it feels to be wrong. Outside, the afternoon sun hit my skin like forgiveness. Warm, reluctant, necessary. Reporters lingered on the steps, waiting for quotas. I gave them none. Truth doesn't need press coverage, it just needs persistence. Geneva's kissed my hand. You okay, baby? I smiled. Okay, is overrated. I'm recognizable again. That's a no. We walked to the parking lot. Marina stood by her car, staring at her pony like it could tell her what to feel. I approached slowly. Baby, I said, you wanted control. Now you have case. What are you going to do with it? She looked up. I read, maybe nothing. Maybe rest. That's a start. She nodded. You at me. At, I said, child, I'm too old for that flow of energy. She looked through tears. You really are impossible. I'm inherited, I said, that's worse. She smiled, finally smile, honest, exhausted. Maybe we should go home. Maybe, I said, but let's take the long way. Sometimes pass attacks the scenic route. That night, I sat on the porch with tea and his eyes wrinked in the moonlight. The marigolds swayed like worshipping angels. I talked about the courtroom, about the witnesses, about the judge's tired kindness. I talked about my daughter's trembling hands. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I felt understanding wearing patience like a scarf. Because beneath that noise, the petitions, the letters, the accusations, there was something smaller, true, breaking its seal. Fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of becoming invisible. And fear makes us all dishonest sometimes. So I whispered into the quiet. Lord, forgive the child who wills wiles out of good intentions. Forgive the motive without shadow. A breeze moved through the marigolds, gentle, approving. And this way, in that us, ye are desires voice again. You both survive the acute today. That's what family means when love forgets its manners. Is smiled. Maybe forgiveness doesn't start with understanding. Maybe it starts with exhaustion, the kind that finally makes you lay your weapons down and breathe. Morning came quiet, like it was trying not to wake the wounds. For the first time in months, the porch light didn't flicker. It just shone steady, deliberate, proud of itself. The sun came through the lace curtains, turning the dust in my living room into gold confetti. I stood in that light a long time, barefoot, letting it warm the spots where fear used to live. That's the thing about survival, it's not a celebration. It's a slow reintroduction to ordinary peace. The day after the hearing, the house didn't feel empty. It felt open. Every room breathed differently, as if the walls themselves were exhaling. Maybe freedom as a sound, and maybe it sounds like silence that no longer hurts. I brewed coffee the way I liked it, strong. One sugar, no apology. I poured it into the mug with the cap on the rim. The one Marina used to call embarrassing. Now it felt like proof, things don't have to be perfect to still feel what matters. Outside, the marigolds glowed. Not one had died since the trial began. Stubborn little puppets. They kept telling me, We don't bloom because it's easy, we bloom because it's time. I spend that first morning planning not out of need, but ceremony. Polishing picture frames, folding Isaiah's old worksheets, watering the plants that kept out living expectation. Then I did something I hadn't done in years, I opened the very window. Let the air in, let the dust out, let the house remember it was built for light. For months I had been living like a woman under cross-examination. Now I was living like evidences had already testified in my favor. I didn't need revenge. Revenge is loud. Pace is fluent. And that morning, I decided my yelling would speak fluent sunlight. Around noon, Geneva stopped by with sweet tea and the look that said it told you so dressed up as concern. Baby, she said, you were a sermon in that courtroom. You could be taken an offering right there. I lauget, if you start breaking, make sure de que es val money. She grinned, you gonna rest now. I shook my head, rest is what people do when they stop growing. I'm just getting started. She raised an eyebrow. Started what? Turning this pain into paperwork. I said, the kind that helps the woman keep the name safe. By the end of that week, I had an idea, or maybe it had me. I called it money in memory. A Saturday circle for women who 50 what survived marriages, ministries, and manipulations. A class about authority contracts, cake statements, and recognition when love starts sounding like management. I printed flyers on pink paper because pink dares the world underestimated. És el pet me designtem. Money i memory, keeping your name in your own hands. Hosted by Ethel Carter, financial literature with a touch of fight and marigolds. We held the first meeting in the court basement, between the vending machine and the left-to-back box. 7 women showed up. I carried a purse full of bills and the heart full of old exhaustion. One said, my son keeps asking me to cousin for a car. Another whispered, my niece has my debit card for convenience. Another cried, my husband left me the house but not the dead. I listened. I didn't preach. I just told them what Isaiah once told me. Pape doesn't lie, but people do. We spent 2 hours filling out forms and translating fine print into plain English. By the end, everyone was laughing, that soft, startled la woman make when they realize survival is still an option. When we finished, I wrote on the whiteboard. We are not helpless. We are unwritten. And the wing is still wet. They clapped. I cried quietly, not out of sadness, but recognition. That's how resurrection feels, not loud, just undeniable. News spread faster than expected. By the 3rd week, we had 20 women, a potluck, and a waiting list. The local paper ran a piece titled Widow Turns Lawsuit into Life as a Bing lesson. They printed my picture based de marigolds. Isaiah Wolbe said, you finally made the front page, baby, and nobody had to die for it. Then one morning, I heard a knock on the door. Marina. Holding a box of lemon muffins from that bakery that charges more for sugar than forgiveness. I heard about your classes, she said, als the town's talking. That man, is Millet, we must be doing something right. She hesitated on the porch. Can I come in? Depends, I said, you bringing pace or paperwork? She laughed, nervous, pace, I think. She walked in slowly, like the house might still judge her. Her eyes lingered on Isaiah's key, then on me. Mama, I saw the article, you looked happy. I am, I said, happiness isn't loud, it's when you stop negotiating with pain. She nodded, I don't think you know that kind of happy. You will, I said, but first, you'll have to stop trying to earn it. Her shoulders drooped, the first sign of surrender since she was 12. She looked down, Mama, I was grown. I didn't rush to comfort her. Some apologies deserve a full silence. I talk protecting you and controlling you, she said. I talk if you handled everything. You wouldn't have to struggle. But maybe I was trying to manage your life because I didn't know how to manage mine. I requed across the table. Covered sherand. Baby, I know. You've been fitting the same way folk, just whispered the weapons. Selauget's routers, you always have a line ready. I besato, I said, words are we kept my house from collapsing. Se lo quedo, can I come to your next class? As a student or a volunteer? Se talked about it, but... Then bring your receipts, I said, I started. That Saturday, se came early. El pet set up caves, brewed coffee, passed out pens that actually worked. When the woman arrived, they whispered. That's shared out the one from the core casa. Says el pin now. Says el pin now. And said it. Se listened will he talked about capacity consent, knowing when love crosses the line into ownership. Se nodded when he said, some people tell your signature before they ever tell your money. At the end, se asked to speak. Her voice spoke but didn't break. Ladies, se said, I tried to manage my motive cause I took power and protection were the same thing. Turns out, power without permission is just fear in disguise. The room went still, then rose in applause, not for the confession, but for the courage. I watched her stand there, sunlit cutting her face, and I thought maybe the lightning finally learned to blow without striking. Weeks turned into months. The classes grew. Bands invited me to speak. The community center offered me an office at in one, next to the janitor's closet, but it came with an amaplata that said Ethel Carter financial advocate. I all beframed it. I didn't stop there. Marine helped me start a podcast, Financial Fight with Miss Ethel. She handled the tech and handled the truth. Our first episode was titled Capacity is a Love Language. We loved it, we argued, we yelled live, on air. One afternoon after recording, she said, Mama, you turned a courtroom into a classroom. I smiled, and you turned a verdict into a volunteer position. We both loved the kind of love that forgives will it takes. Then came the letter from Dr. Salton. Typed apology, and written signature. You reminded me that capacity isn't just cognition, it's conscience. Thank you for the lesson. I enclosed un $100 donation for the seminar fund. I taped it inside my cabinet, right next to Isaiah's old note. Two men, both educated, both humbled, both finally fluent in accountability. Progress comes in pairs, apparently. By spring, the marigolds had spread. Wall a new rose, unplanted, uninvited, glowing anyway. Marine helped me trim them. She asked, you think Daddy says all this? Baby, I said, I probably planted half of it from where a base. We loved until we see the jacket. Then she went quiet. Mama, I want to start a scholarship fund. For women learning finance after 50. Name it after Daddy. I smiled, then make sure the clause says. All decisions shall be made in sunlight. The long night was magic. The van narrate the Ethel Carter Women's Fund building futures in fight and finance. Marine handled logistics like a producer a revival. I gave the opening speak. Told the crowd, they tried to take my house. Instead, I built rooms for everyone who have felt owned. The applause lasted too long, but I didn't stop it. Some echoes deserved to finish themselves. That evening, back home, I sat again in Isaiah's sky. The portly tomb made softly, proud of its consistency. Marina joined me, barefoot, holding tea. We didn't talk much. Just watched the sky turn caramel and then bruise into dusk. Mama, she said, I think I finally understand something. What's that? You didn't win in court by arguing garde. You won because you refused to become what they accused you of. You didn't fit for property, you fought for personhood. I smiled, baby, I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to remain visible. She nodded slowly. Visibility, she said, that's legacy. Exactly, I said, legacy is inheritance. It's the right to still be seen after people stop listening. When she left that night, she kissed my forehead like she used to when she was small, kid. Embarrassed, but full of care. After the door closed, I sat a while alone. The air smelled like rain mixed with memory. I looked at the pork lid, steady and unshaken. And whispered, "We're finally listening for the right reasons." The house didn't answer. It didn't need to. Some victorious are so quiet, even while no to listen. People ask me now if I've forgiven her. I tell them forgiveness is a form of literacy. You have to keep rereading it until the meaning changes. Some days, forgiveness feels like a song I remember all the words to. Other days, it's a foreign language I'm still learning to pronounce. But I keep studying. Because a piece isn't the mood. It's my work. By summer, the foundation reached its first 100 women. We used to disseminate titled ownership as oxygen. Stuart on stage, Navy suite, no script. Said, "Ladies, revenge is for people still waiting to be seen." I va bien seen. Now educata. They gave me a standing ovation. Not because the spec was grand, because they saw themselves in it. Afterwards, a young woman came up to me. I breathed. "Miss Ethel," she said, "I heard your podcast. My mama says you sound like the truth she was too tired to say out loud." I hugged her, whispered, then tell her she raised the echo. That night, I wrote in my journal. I am not my trial. I am my testimony. My name is not the property line between love and love. My name is the lead that remembers how to stay on. And below it, I added in Isaiah's and writing. All decisions shall be made in sunlight. So no, I didn't seek revenge. I built curriculum. I didn't shout my victory. I documented it. And I didn't punish my doubt. I showed her that redemption looks best in warm lighting. Because the power isn't loud. It's accurate. And peace is just power that finally stopped explaining itself. La invitación llegó una mañana tranquila. Cuando la luz del sol entraba filtrada por las cortinas de encaje y la lámpara del porche encendía a su hora. Obediente como un corazón con buena memoria. El correo decía: "Señora Ethel Carter, la ciudad tiene el honor de invitarla como oradora principal en la conferencia de mujeres, la propiedad como oxígeno". Lo leí 3 veces. No por incredulidad, sino por gratitud. La paz tiene la costumbre de repetir lo cierto. Para las que pasaron años viviendo a la defensiva. Marina cruzó la sala con una carpeta en brazos. Vio el correo, sonrió despacio y dijo: "Mamá, el escenario es tuyo y también la clase de todo un pueblo". "Entonces hablemos", le respondí, pero no desde el escenario. Hablemos desde la luz. El auditorio brillaba como una pared recién perdonada con pintura nueva. Había mujeres de todas las edades, viudas, maestras, hijas que ahora cuidaban a sus propias madres. Llevaba mi traje azul marino, un clavel de caléndula en el pecho, el color del valor. Decía Isaiah. Marina ajustó el micrófono y me susurró: "Solo habla como en tus clases de dinero y memoria". "Ahí en seno", le contesté. "Aquí solo voy a recordar". Me acerqué al atril sin papeles, sin guión, con la voz recién lavada por la verdad. "Buenas tardes", dije. Hoy no vengo a contar la historia de un juicio, sino la de una casa donde la lámpara del porche sigue encendiendo sola. Aunque el hombre que la instaló ya duerma en el silencio. Vengo a hablar de un hombre, Ethel, que aprendió a no ser la nota al pie de su propia vida. El público se aquietó. Desde niñas nos premiaron por obedecer, continué, pero la propiedad no nace de la obediencia, sino de la comprensión. En mis talleres decimos, el papel no miente, pero las personas sí. Y aún así, el papel puede ser escrito por el miedo. Antes de firmar, pregúntense, ¿estoy firmando por amor o por miedo a desaparecer? Les hablé de la diferencia entre capacidad y consentimiento, entre cuidado y custodia. De cómo un correo sin firma casi me robó el nombre. Y de cómo una mujer puede defenderse con claridad en lugar de con gritos. Al final respiré y dije despacio. Me preguntaron cómo gané. Yo no gané. Me reconocieron. Y el reconocimiento no hace ruido, brilla. No me vengué haciendo ruido, demostré. Por un instante nadie aplaudió. Después, el silencio se llenó de manos. Una ovación tibia, redonda, que me abrazó sin empujar. Vi a Marina al borde del escenario, con lágrimas que ya no pesaban. Cuando me abrazó, me susurró. La paz suena mejor que cualquier micrófono. Después del acto, se me acercaron mujeres con historias de papel y de piel. Una anciana con las uñas pintadas de frambuesa me dijo. Mañana cancelaré la tarjeta que comparta mi nieto. Otra joven me abrazó con la urgencia de quien aún no ha sido herida. Tenía miedo, pero hoy entendí que el miedo no necesita control, necesita luz. Firmé ejemplares de un pequeño folleto que Marina había diseñado. La capacidad es un lenguaje de amor. En la primera página escribí. Conserva tu nombre en tus manos, aunque suden. El sudor se llama vida. Y entonces la vida hizo su movimiento más fino. Vi acercarse a una mujer de vestido crema y labios rojos, al pasado caminando sobre tacones. Era Sherry, la amiga de Marina de aquel año de tormenta y video. La que reenvió el dolor como entretenimiento. Señora Carter, murmuró. Vengo a pedir perdón. Fui cobarde, usé la vergüenza de su hija para sentirme parte de algo. La miré con calma. Y mi hija. Todavía no me habla, tal vez nunca, solo quiero devolver algo. El tiempo no se devuelve, le dije, pero se puede pagar a plazos. Cuando veas a alguien caer, no seas reportera, sé agua. Asintió con los ojos mojados. No hubo drama, solo un ciclo que por fin aprendí a cerrarse sin portazo. Por la tarde, un periodista me preguntó. ¿Desea enviar un mensaje a quienes la dudaron? Sonreí. Sí, que yo también dudé de mí, pero la luz no necesita que yo sea perfecta, solo que abra la cortina. Los demás pueden quedarse afuera si quieren. El sol no se ofende. Ni él ni su grabadora supieron que escribí después. Semanas más tarde, las invitaciones llovían como semillas de caléndula. Iglesias, bibliotecas, universidades. Marina organizaba el calendario sin una sola exigencia. Trabajaba con la serenidad de quien aprendió que redimir es un verbo. No un título. Una nota, mientras editábamos el episodio número 12 del podcast. Me miró seria. Mama, quiero pedir perdón otra vez. No para que me perdones, sino para admitir que elegí el ruido por miedo. Tú elegiste la luz por comprensión. Le tomé la mano. El perdón no borra, le dije. Cambia la unidad de medida. Antes contábamos el amor en gritos, ahora lo medimos en respiraciones. Mientras sigamos respirando en el mismo ritmo, estamos bien. Rió, como la lámpara del porche con el reloj. Exacto, respondí. Y si un día la lámpara se retrasa. No la demandes. Al fondo Ethel Carter crecía. Un banco local ofreció patrocinio con condiciones. Querían poner su logo antes del nombre de Ethel. Leí el contrato despacio, saboreando cada coma. El representante dijo, solo queremos supervisar los gastos. ¿Supervisar o aprobar? Pregunté. Técnicamente, aprobar. Sonreí, nada es técnico cuando la dignidad firma. Cerré la carpeta, abrí la ventana y dejé entrar sol. Sé que el dinero tiene su propio brillo, dije, pero este proyecto fue plantado con otro tipo de luz. No mezclaremos tonos. Salieron educados, confundidos. Es de tarde, Marina me abrazó riendo. Convertiste una negociación en un acto poético. No, respondí, solo ajusté la iluminación. Otro día apareció el doctor Saltón en la clase, con una caja de galletas. Vengo a escuchar y a entregar tarea atrasada, bromeó. Las alumnas rieron y yo lo hice sentarse en la segunda fila. ¿Dónde la culpa aprende? Al final se acercó. ¿Puedo impartir una sesión sobre lenguaje médico y derecho a firmar? Sí, dije, Si empieza con esta frase, el médico tiene la obligación de escuchar el nombre con que lo llama su paciente. A veces ese nombre es mama. Otras veces, Ethel. Pero siempre debe escribirlo bien. Él sintió, respirando como quien reaprende primeros auxilios. La venganza sutil nunca llegó en titulares. Llegó en gestos pequeños. Una abuela que canceló la tarjeta de su nieto y a un asilo invitó al lado. Una madre joven que enseñó a su hijo que ayudar no significa reemplazar. Una chica de 17 que escribió en su cuaderno. Diré no con una frase completa y guardaré una copia. Caminé por la ciudad y vi ventanas abiertas. No por calor, sino porque las casas querían respirar con su propio nombre. Un día alguien anónimo me envió un enlace con el viejo video de Marina. El mensaje decía, mira, aquí la hija de la Santa Ethel. Lo abrí, lo cerré antes del primer segundo. Reenvié el mismo enlace al remitente con una sola línea. Esta factura pertenece al año 15. Ya está pagada. No intenta cobrar intereses. Nunca respondió. Ni el pasado tampoco. Esa nota Marina llegó al porche. Se sentó en el suelo. Odio que Internet no olvida, suspiró. Internet no recuerda, le dije. Solo archiva. Recordar es tarea del corazón. Y el nuestro ya prefiere el color amarillo. Amarillo como las caléndulas. Amarillo como el valor, contesté. El consejo escolar me invitó a un comité de educación financiera. En la primera reunión un padre preguntó. Y los hombres, siempre habla de mujeres. Le sonreí, usted también tiene un nombre que proteger. Enséñale a su hijo que mano es posee. Si le enseña que el amor es escuchar si el otro todavía se llama igual. Será un guardián de luz, no un propietario. Se sentó en silencio. Afuera, el cielo se abrió como una página recién desengrapada. Llegó el día de la primera entrega de becas. Marina subió al escenario. No leyó discurso. Contó historia. La de una hija que confundió aplausos con existencia. Y la de una madre que demostró que existir no necesita público. Al final dijo. Si existiera un curso llamado Brillar sin golpear, me inscribiría. Las risas y las lágrimas compartieron fila. Yo subí y la abracé. Esa forma de abrazo que solo se da entre quienes ya no se daban explicaciones. Aquella nota volví a casa. Abrí la puerta despacio. Encendí la lámpara del porche. Seguía fiel, puntual, sin vacilar. Me senté en la vieja silla de Isaiah y dejé que la madera recordara mi peso. Amor, susurré al aire. No ganamos a nadie, solo dejamos de perdernos. El viento movió la cortina, las caléndulas se inclinaron como si escucharan misa. Serví té, dejé que el vapor subiera sin prisa, como una lección sin diapositivas. Pensé en todos los que dudaron, los que lastimaron, los que intentaron firmar sobre mi nombre. No vi sus rostros, solo sus sombras apagándose a medida que la luz avanzaba. El teléfono vibró, duerme bien. Mamá. Respondí, bien, ya no hay nada que vigilar. Cerré el cuaderno y abrí el corazón otro milímetro. No hubo música, ni cámaras, ni gloria. Solo la respiración de una mujer que terminó su último examen de vida. Y antes de apagar la lámpara. Lo dije en voz alta, para que la casa lo oiga. La luz lo registra y yo misma lo crea. La paz es la forma más ruidosa de venganza.